time, it is my honor to introduce Cindy Gamboa. She is a member of this coalition, an amazing mother and advocate for children. Please welcome Cindy.
Thank you, Christine. That you made me blush. Hi, everyone. Cindy Gamboa again, and today is August 20th. Hard to believe. It feels like the summer has flown by, and while we're still blessed to have warm weather outside, we know that the days are getting shorter, and more, the reality that the new school year is about to be here is heavy on my mind as a parent, and probably on yours too. So I'm going to admit, it seems a bit daunting. Being asked to choose whether my kids are gonna be enrolled in school virtually or face-to-face instruction. We know that during the pandemic, the school year is gonna be more challenging. We know that our kids need to be in school because every school day counts. But I need to know how I can help set up my child to get the most out of every school day. Right now, I feel like I haven't been given a set school schedule to help my son right now. I can't plan with information that I don't have, right? So I want to make sure that I'm setting up my son to have the best education as possible with his virtual learning that he's going to embark in this fall. Now, I can only plan with the information I have. So this weekend, I did a lot of running around trying to buy a new desk and set up a learning space at my home for my child, and that has been stressful. I'm feeling very scattered, and I also need more information from our leaders. One thing is for sure, though. I've been reminded that I have to use my network during these times because it's going to take a village. Please remember that you are not alone. Please rely on your village. That could be family, friends, loved ones, but also remember that your village includes your schools, your child's school leaders. They have spent countless hours planning this upcoming school year, and I'm sure they're thinking about logistics that me as a parent, I haven't even thought about, right? So reach out to them. Don't be afraid to ask them the questions, and remember that we're our child's number one advocate. We have to ask the questions that we need to get answers and have more information to make sure that we're doing the best that we can for our child's education this fall. Demand that they start to think about the needs of your child. And remember that we're also going to be here for you. So thank you very much, and I'll turn it back over to Jametta.
Thank you so much, Cindy. And it's a joy, as always, to have you as part of the program. And thank you for sharing, in fact, that all of us are struggling a little bit during this time. But we know that staying connected to each other is just absolutely vital. So we're going to move into our program. And one of the things that we have been talking about consistently is the reality that we have got to make sure that our communities have the resources that they need. And one of the most important ways for us to have the resources that families need to thrive is to have the census completed so that Detroit gets its fair share of resources to keep us healthy, to keep us educated, and have jobs that make a difference for our community. So to talk about that, we're really pleased to invite Vicki Kovari from the city of Detroit. Vicki, welcome.
Thank you so much. Pleased to be here with everybody. Just to give you an update on where we are in the census in the city of Detroit. We are just above 49%. And what that means is that 49% of all households in the city have responded to the census. Now that number includes households that might be vacant or abandoned or even demolished. So it includes all of the addresses that the Census Bureau has in their file. So we know that that number is going to go up when they just count occupied units, but we still have a lot of work to do. I wanted to just give you briefly an idea of some of the big changes that have happened over the last month in the census operations. You might have remembered that on a previous call or meeting, we were looking at the census ending on October 31st. But several weeks ago, the Trump administration and the Census Bureau abruptly changed that and cut it short by 30 days. So now the census ends September 30th. And that's important because this past Tuesday, last week, the Census Bureau started knocking on doors to all those who have not responded. And that door knocking operation usually takes about 4 months, and now they have about 8 weeks. So that door knocking operation will end on September 30th. The website, my2020census.gov, will close down at that time, as well as the phone lines for people to respond by phone. One of the things also that has changed in operations, that's a good thing, is that at the end of August, the first week of September, the Census Bureau will send out paper forms to all the addresses that are in census tracts that are below 50% in their response rates. So that includes most of the census tracts in the city of Detroit. So we have paper forms that are going to be mailed out to many, many households in Detroit that have not responded. So that's a good sign. And the door knockers are out now on the street. So you will see census workers. They'll have badges and bags. So if you see them, just encourage your neighbors who have not responded to respond to the census workers, because they will come back and keep visiting until somebody does respond. And it's really important, as Jametta said, for every census form, we literally get $5,000 per person per year in federal funding. And as you all know, that federal funding goes to schools, to hospitals, to EMS, to parks, a whole bunch of things that are critical to keep up our quality of life. So it's very important that everybody continue to promote filling out that census form with your neighbors, your friends, and your family. So as we go into the last 6 weeks of the census, the city of Detroit is doing its own canvassing. So we've hired 11 community groups that are also door knocking. They're in yellow shirts, so they're different than the U.S. Census Bureau's, but they're after the same thing, which is to encourage people to respond to the census. But we're also looking for events. So if you have an event that's going to draw hundreds of people or several hundred people, we'd like to partner with you on those events. These might be backpack giveaways, they might be food giveaways, etc. So we are going to be giving out $10 Visa gift cards to anyone who fills out the census on the site of that event. So we'll have $10 Visa gift cards available to be at your events. We can't do a lot of smaller events, so we're looking for larger ones that are sponsored by groups of community organizations or churches, etc. But if you do have an event like that coming up, please feel free to email me at kovariv@detroitmi.gov. That's KOVARI@detroitmi.gov. And we will be happy to partner with you and have our gift cards there and our volunteers there to help people sign up for the census. We are also at grocery stores almost every Saturday, giving people $5 off their groceries to fill out the census on the site. And that has been quite successful. We've probably helped 500 people over the last 2 months fill out their census. So with that, I'll turn it back over to our hosts. And thank you so much for all of your involvement in the census over these last few months. Thank you.
Sure, and Victoria, Vicki, thank you for your leadership and leading this for our city. This has been no small task and is so critical at this point in time. And there are certain communities in particular that we know we've got to hear from. And so we know how important it is to hear from both our immigrants and in particularly our Latinx community. So very pleased to welcome Crystal Rivas, who is a census worker with the Detroit Hispanic Development Corporation. Welcome, Crystal.
Thank you, Jametta. Hi, everyone. My name is Crystal. I'm this year's census coordinator at DHDC at the Detroit Hispanic Development Corporation. I'm super excited to be on the town hall today. It's my first time on here, even though I watch them. I've been watching them since they started in April. It's truly an amazing platform, the information that gets shared, right? So as Vicki was saying, the census is, moving forward. We're reaching our deadline, and we really need to get our response rates up. Our communities need to be represented. Our communities need to be counted. We can't stand to lose a single dollar, right? So like Vicki was saying, the census gives us funding for things that are super important in all of our lives. School lunches for your kids. I mean, who doesn't want their kid to receive a free meal, right? Food stamps, roads, Head Starts, all these educational programs for our kids, community centers. So the list goes on, right? So we've actually been working against Trump's administration. They have been working against our communities. They tried to add the citizenship question on our census survey, which was ruled against by our judges, and we're really grateful for that, as well as cutting us short. So they did extend the deadline at first, and now they cut us short a month. And it's really disheartening for our communities, because that takes away a whole month of educating our community and getting counted, right? So we want to fight back. We want to make sure that every
to start from Crystal. Crystal was up?
Yep.
We should probably acknowledge. So Crystal, why don't you come up and we'll acknowledge what just happened.
Yeah, go ahead, Christine.
Amanda, do you want to do it or do you want me to do it?
Either one, because I'm gonna say Trump spies.
Let Jametta do it.
We're live.
Welcome back, everyone. And what you just experienced is our new reality. We need to stay connected, and we need this thing called the internet to do it. So keep in mind, we've got to push policies that make sure that the internet and access and digital literacy is available for all of us. But with that, we're delighted to have you back with us, and we're delighted, Crystal, for you to continue to share the way that is so important for all communities to be involved with the census. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. That caught us off guard.
Yeah.
I was just speaking, and then I realized I was off. But that's fine, right? That's why, like Jametta said, we do have to make sure that we have these policies that allow us to stay connected and have everyone in our community have access to the internet, right? And to stable and reliable internet. So as I was saying, you know, Trump's administration has been working really hard against our communities, and we want to make sure that we are counted. There is no reason why we should not be counted, right? I can't think of one reason why everyone should not fill out the census, but we have listed hundreds of reasons why we should fill out the census, right? So with that being said, I do want to mention some of the things that DHDC has been working on in our communities to help get our census completion rates up, as well as to help get our communities educated, involved, have fun while doing it. We've been hosting an amazing game called Censoteria that we borrowed from an organization called La Luz in California. This game has educated thousands of people, has educated me, our communities. It's basically like a bingo card that we play with our community on Facebook Live. It has a lot of information that we share with everyone. It's super fun. If you play with us, you're eligible to win a prize. So we play Wednesdays at 6:30. If you would like to play with us, please get in touch with us. We can send you a card digitally, or we can drop it off at your home. So please message us if you would like to play with us. We do play every Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. We are also doing sidewalk messages. And I encourage everyone out there, if you have some chalk laying around or some sidewalk paint laying around, put out some messages to your community, inform them how important it is, write down the website, write down the phone number, give people access to those things that they might not be able to have access to otherwise, correct? So we're also doing some canvassing, dropping off literature. If you see literature and you might not be able to use it, pass it on to the next person. Please encourage everyone to fill out their census. We have to get counted. We have to show the government. We have to show our numbers. And we're working really hard. We have a lot of work to do. We have these 6 weeks remaining, and we're going to keep going, and we're going to get these numbers up. So if you have any questions about the census, about what it is, any of the questions on the census survey, please get in touch with us, and we will help you out any way that we can. Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to turn it back over to Jametta.
And thank you, Crystal. It was a joy to have you. And you see, now you've gone from watching to actually being on the town hall. And as I said, it's a delight to have you. We're also really pleased that we hope that all of our audience that need interpretation are seeing that we have our wonderful interpreters back with us. We're going to continue this segment by really zooming in on what are the specific things that we stand to lose if we are not engaged in the census. And to help us understand that more is Brandon Snyder, who is the director of the Detroit Action. Brandon, welcome.
Hello, welcome. And then for folks, what up, though? So again, I'm Brandon Snyder. I'm the executive director at Detroit Action. We're a community-based organization building political power for working class Black and brown folks here in the metro region. And so I think folks have said it. I think that, I want to just just sort of drill down on the fact that like the census is a part of our civic engagement process. The census is as important as voting, as important as being out in the streets, because it is a clear determinator of political power and representation and resources for our communities. So like when we talk about like, showing up for this census, we know that, Vicki made a really good point that there's about 49% of a return rate for Detroiters on the census, 49% on completions. And when we talk about when we talk about like filling out the census, what's at risk if we don't are the things that you and I care about. Things like losing funding for SNAP, losing funding for Head Start, losing funding for federal student loans and Pell Grants, support that we need for hospitals, for healthcare, Medicare and Medicaid. These are the things that are on the line when we talk about the census. When we talk about, political power, we talk about like how our maps are drawn, both at the federal level, but at the state level and the county level as well. Like, what does it look like for our districts to change based on, people not filling out the census? That means losing a congresswoman. That means losing, an elected official who either moves over, who doesn't represent your neighborhood anymore, or losing that entire district altogether. Like these are, the sort of decisions and the sort of impacts that happen, from us, being involved in this, not being involved in the census, but also not understanding like the full might of our voice. So, I want to just like lift that up and talk about like what it means to like for us to engage. Like for us at Detroit Action, some of the things that we've been doing this year is that because of COVID, we haven't been able to be out in the streets, knocking on doors, talking to voters, doing tabling events. But we've tried to lean in where we can, via text messages, via a number of other opportunities to not only engage people, but also to really educate them, wherever they may be. For us, what that looks like is talking to folks on the phone, sending out text messages, sending out mail, and sometimes popping up at laundromats and shopping centers to educate people about the census, to educate people about like its impact and what it means for our communities if we don't fill it out. So folks have thrown out some numbers. I just want to throw out one more, that, in Michigan, this means that, an undercount means, nearly 51,000 Black folks, are at risk of not filling out the census. That means, that translates to $249 million of money that'll be lost. And when that money is lost, it doesn't just, vanish and go away. It goes to other communities. It goes to other, states. It goes to other parts of our community. So for us, if people are interested in getting involved and letting their friends, their families, and their neighbors know about the census and how important it is, we're asking you to do two things. Go to our census website, which is countmeindetroit.com, and fill out our pledge to complete the census. We're going to be asking people to let their friends, families, and neighbors know about the importance of the census, and we're going to be giving people the tools to be able to do that. And that stuff is simple as get postcards to folks, some of the detailed information on how to talk about the census with your friends and family, as well as, just the general stats like that we've laid out today. So countmeindetroit.org or countmeindetroit.com. And my name is Brandon Snyder. I'm the Executive Director at Detroit Action. So if any questions people have, feel free to reach out at detroitaction.org. Thanks.
Brandon, thank you. Thank you so much. And in particular for lifting up that completing the census is part of our civic action, and that it is another tool to make sure that we have the representation that our community deserves based upon our real numbers. And just for a really quick moment before we go into our questions, could you state what is at risk in terms of any congressional seats right now that we currently have that we could lose if people don't get the census in? Could you share that?
So, the Voting Rights Act protects, majority minority districts. But, this was a thing that was passed in the 1960s that John Lewis, recently passed, fought for, that Martin King, who passed, or was murdered many years ago, fought for. But in 2013, it was, demolished. So now, majority minority districts can be, manipulated, and, they no longer have to, hold up. So what we're at risk of losing, both in Detroit, but also statewide, is losing one of our Detroit districts. We're at risk of losing one of the metro area districts, both because of population loss, but also, again, because of the fact that, the census, of being able to show and represent how many folks that we have here in the state at the given time. And so what that means is literally being able to have somebody from our backyard in Lansing, in Lansing, yes, but also in Congress in Washington, D.C., who can have our backs.
Okay, thank you so much. And thank you for reminding us that we all need to get into some good trouble. Speaking of good trouble, let's hear from our audience. Christine, do we have any questions or any information in from the chat?
Yeah, we have a few. Thanks, Jametta. I want to remind folks to put their questions or text their questions right now, and keep doing so. And we are dropping a survey in the chat right now. If you fill out the survey, you will be entered into a raffle to win $25 gift card. Hopefully also we've pulled out of the chat what Vicky put in the chat is how you can fill out your census online. Many weeks back, I did it. It took about 10 minutes. Vicky, there's a couple of questions that came up that I just would like you to confirm for everybody. So the first is there a citizenship question on the census?
There is not. There are 10 questions or 9 questions on the census, and they do not ask anything about citizenship. Now, like Crystal said that they had tried, but the census still counts everyone, regardless of immigration status.
And then just can you please confirm that all of the information that's gathered on the census is confidential and not shared with other governmental agencies?
That's correct.
That
so,
right?
Yeah, by law, the census information cannot be shared with any government agency. That includes Homeland Security, FBI, CIA, any other local or state government. The only time your personal information is released is 72 years later, literally 72 years later. So in 2022, the 1950 census information with your name and the address, et cetera, will be released. So I want to add to something that Brandon said, in addition to the congressional representation, the census is an historical record of your family. So it's an official record of the United States. So one thing I tell, especially young people, is that, when you become a grandparent or even a great grandparent 72 years from now, the generations that follow you are going to know why or where you lived in 2020. What street you lived on in Detroit, where their mother or father grew up. And if that information is not filled out, it's like you're erasing yourself from history. And I think it's very important. That's at least as important as our congressional representation and the funding that we get federally, that people include themselves in that kind of historical record of the history of the country and the history of the city.
Great, thank you. And I was doing quick math while you were talking. So we need about 375,000 more people to fill out the census. Is that right? Well, probably not that many, but how many, where are we at number wise?
The census is per household, not per person. So it's only one person in a household that fills out the form, not everyone.
Okay.
So we have literally We know we have about 260 or 270 housing units in the city, but the response rate now is based on about 360,000 housing units. And that's because they're including bad addresses or vacant
Sure.
housing units, new construction, all that stuff. So what we need, so they estimate about 180,000 households have filled out the census already. So we need another, 20 or 30,000 more households to fill out the census. We'll get to where we were and maybe even better than we were in 2010. So that's why everything we do has to be focused on signing people up at this point. In the last 6 weeks, we really can't afford to educate people anymore. We just got to say, fill out the form and help them do it, because a lot of people are intimidated by the form. It's easy for some of us, but it's not so easy for others who are not familiar with how to do it on a tablet or their computer. And it's a government form, so often people are a little intimidated by it. So we want to go out there, out to where people are, and actually help them fill the form out in front of you. At this point, we really can't do much else.
Great. Thanks so much, Vicki.
You're
Jametta?
welcome.
Yes, thank you. And particularly for all of us in the coalition, we know that we need to get into some good trouble and help make this happen. It's our duty, and our city depends on us to be able to get these resources. But as we talk about resources, it's really important for us to get an understanding of the critical resource that teachers are to our entire educational process, and obviously to our community. And to help us think about that in this time, we're really pleased to have Todd Tennis, who is the president of Capital Services. And that is a multi-client lobbying firm in Lansing that has been representing the American Federation of Teachers, the Michigan chapter. And to talk a little bit about how funding and legislation are occurring right now. Todd, welcome.
Thank you, Jametta.
Yeah.
I'm glad to be here. So yeah, I'm the contract lobbyist for AFT Michigan in Lansing, and we represent staff, teachers, and other personnel at DPS. So I was asked to kind of talk a little bit about what's going on in Lansing. And so just this week, the legislature came to an agreement with the governor on a package of bills that will kind of set guidelines for how we're going to move forward in this upcoming school year. And I just want to start out by saying that there is no good answer for providing education during a pandemic. No matter what choice is made by each local school district, there are going to be negative consequences, whether or not there is in-person learning, where there is even though children have shown to be much more resistant to the negative effects of COVID-19, they are not immune. They can still spread the disease to others. And in some cases, children can become very sick and even die from this disease. So on the other flip side, if we rely solely on online learning, there is a great fear of the educational loss that will happen with students. And as we ourselves just saw on this webinar, when we had some technical difficulties, that's a perfect example of how fragile the internet and online resources and education can be. So there's no perfect solution to this. And frankly, a message we have for our members who are teaching staff and other support staff and administrators throughout DPS and throughout the state, and to parents and students, is it's okay to not be okay right now. And so the legislature and the governor have agreed to legislation that will pretty much leave decision-making as to how schools will operate in this upcoming year in the hands of school boards and superintendents and each local school district. There was some desire from some lawmakers who wanted to require every school to have in-person learning. there was some desire from other lawmakers who wanted to solely do online learning, at least until certain benchmarks were met in terms of the spread of the disease. So the final compromise, again, as I said, leaves those decisions in the hands of each school district. The other piece of this legislation that I think is very important is it connects those decision-making personnel, school boards, superintendents, with local health department officials. And every one of these decisions, to do online learning, to do in-person learning, some kind of blend of each, is going to be informed by data from local public health experts on what the spread of the disease is doing in that area. So I guess I just kind of wanted to lay that out there, that those decisions are going to be made locally, that we're very concerned about making sure that students and staff and parents are protected as much as possible. But the bottom line is that there's no perfect solution to this. We've never gone through anything like this in recent memory. And we're all going to have to come together and work together to make sure that students are able to get the best education possible, that parents are able to get, resources that they need. And some of those resources are being provided by the state. This legislation and other pieces of legislation do provide tens of millions of dollars for parents to be able to get electronic devices, for students to help increase internet connectivity, which again, we saw just how important that is, so that students can do the best they can in a challenging online environment. So with that, I think I'm getting close to the end of my time, and so I'll turn it back over to Jeanette.
Todd, thank you. And thank you for a very level sharing of the reality that there's still a lot of unknowns, and we have to go with science, and we need to be understanding of each other and give each other some grace as we're trying to figure out the most appropriate and safe paths that keep all of us and our children, our teachers, our community safe. And certainly the school districts are juggling the weight of that kind of responsibility. So we're always pleased to have back with us our administrators, both from our public school system as well as our charters. So we're pleased to have join us is Beth Gonzalez. Beth is the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction at Detroit Public Schools Community District. Welcome, Beth.
Thank you, Janetta. I'm honored to have been invited to speak today and connect with you all. Janetta kindly introduced me, but my name is Beth Gonzalez. I serve as the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction for Detroit Public Schools Community District. And I come to you today, also not only as an administrator in this district, but as a mother of two young elementary school age sons. And I too, like many of you, are navigating the challenges that we face in making decisions for our children and navigating what it means to be a professional mother, a spouse, and concerns in the year ahead for what is this experience going to be like for my children? Where is it going to leave them in terms of their success in a grade level in an important year of their lives? And I carry that into my role as a leader on behalf of the 50,000 students that our district serves as well, and take that responsibility seriously. In my role, I have the opportunity to support educators in our system, as well as families with the resources and supports they need as we navigate this. And so, as has been stated earlier, districts have been working around the clock, really since the closure hit in March. And since that time, our district launched a full comprehensive 10-week distance learning plan. We hosted a summer school implementation, both online and in person. And all the while, we've been preparing for fall. And as many of you are aware, the district's plan currently includes a plan for a very limited in-person experience for a subset of our students. And then we're anticipating around at least 32,000 students will be participating in online instruction with our educators. And so today, what I wanted to talk a little bit about with the limited amount of time I have is our plan for online instruction. More information will be posted to our website in the coming days, and is going to be communicated through our schools to our families. We are publishing schedules. Cindy mentioned at the very top of this engagement about as a family, and I haven't received my schedule, the district's developed recommended schedules for online students, and those will be shared through your schools. One of the things that we're really proud of about our plan for online instruction for the fall, which is different than what we're seeing a lot of other large urban school districts implement nationally, and perhaps some Metro Detroit school districts, is that we're really committed to our teachers providing daily instruction to our students live. We know from the research that students don't learn as well from pre-recorded content that they're supposed to just sit and listen to. In fact, recently there was an op-ed in the New York Times by Sal Khan, who made Khan Academy, which many of you know, and he himself says, this is not the best way for students to learn. We know that our teachers know our students. They know them as individuals. They know their needs. They can build community among the students in their classroom. And that social aspect is actually really important to a child's development. We also know that listening real time to what a student has to offer and what a teacher has to say, and that, you know, I myself, I consider myself a teacher first, even in my role. And I know when my kids don't get it and when I need to do it again. And that's what live instruction will offer to our students. And so each day there'll be a daily schedule and aligned to what students would experience in school. So students in online can expect a full day experience. That does not mean that they're going to be sitting live in front of a computer all day with their teachers and students. There's going to be an mix of live time and then some small group work or independent work where teachers will remain available and students will work. There'll also be a break in the middle of the day for lunch, and there'll be transition time in between each subject for students to get a snack, get to the bathroom, stand and stretch. We're also working with our educators with a focus on social emotional learning and ways to activate students kinesthetically, even though they're physically, or get them active, get them up, even though they're physically at a computer. An update to our plan is that we will be offering our whole child supports to our students in K through 8 who are online. So they will receive art, music, and PE instruction 4 days a week. And that is from feedback we received from families and is part of our updated plan, and that will be posted in our online schedules. In terms of facilitating instruction, our teachers, thanks to actually, you know, a lot has been said in the news about our partnership, our relationship right now with our union, but actually our union was incredibly supportive in agreeing to and supporting educators for actually 6 days of intensive professional learning and preparation. And so teachers will be learning about existing online platforms and new online platforms that we are will be implementing in the fall to make a more robust, high quality experience for our students. So many of you heard we're introducing Schoology. It's a comprehensive learning management system that'll give students like a home room. It'll be their classroom, even though they're not physically in the classroom. Their teachers will post daily schedules, which will be consistent, announcements, discussion boards, and it'll be a way to build a class community. That's also a platform where students will do assignments. And then beyond that platform, in different content areas, there'll be additional online platforms where students can do work and learn, and teachers can see how students are progressing, both live when they're doing it, and also after work products are submitted. The expectation for online instruction is daily participation, attendance, completion of assignments, and students will be getting grades. I probably have taken more than my 5 minutes, and I know there's a question and answer period, but I hope that this gave a succinct overview of our vision for online instruction. And I appreciated the previous presenters' words about how we know this is imperfect. We all actually wish we were back in February, and I know educators in our own district that I'm connecting with are mourning that what that first day of school is like. This is different. And so, I remain optimistic, realistic, but optimistic about what we can provide and offer for our students, because the bottom line is we have a commitment that we need to carry forward to them in the year ahead. They deserve a good year of instruction from us despite this pandemic. Thank you, Jametta, again for having me today. I very much appreciate it.
And Beth, thank you. And thank you from framing that in the reality is that you're a mom, you're a parent, you're a professional. And sometimes in communities, we may forget that people who are making these decisions are walking the same reality, perhaps sometimes a little bit different resources, but emotionally and psychologically are struggling just as much with the science and what to best do. And so, of course, we've heard from the district, and so thank you. And as we always want to do is also to hear voices from our charters. And so we're pleased to have joined us an administrator from University Prep, and that is Danielle Jackson. Danielle, welcome.
Hello, and thank you, Jametta, for having me here today. My name is Danielle Jackson, and I am the Interim CEO. For University Prep Schools, we manage University Prep Academy, University Prep Science and Math, and University Prep Art and Design in Detroit. And we work with over 4,700 families. And echoing some of the sentiments that both Beth and Cindy alluded to earlier, and Jametta, you even said this, if there was ever a season where grace was necessary, it is definitely this one. And Cindy's story really resonated with me because one of the things that we were committed to in our process for reopening was having really strong communication with our parents, because we wanted to understand what their pain points were with, as we shut down in March to June, we learned a lot about the stress that being away from school caused for our families and for our teachers as well. And so what we heard from them is the decision to return or to stay virtual was a heavy one. And in fact, as we surveyed our families over time, anywhere from 15 to 20% of our parents would say that they were unsure. And so we were committed to really having an eye on health and safety, because this has touched all of us from the human perspective. I have a college student, this is his sophomore year, and he's home with me. So it definitely is impacting everyone. And so we paid attention to the science, and we made the tough decision to return this fall 100% virtual. It really wasn't easy for us, but we attended to what our parents were saying, what our staff were saying about safety, and we just felt we needed to know more about the science of how the virus is moving, how we can ensure that we keep everyone safe, because as Beth said, in-person learning, we know, is what's best for our students. We're also focusing heavily in our reopening plan on providing parents and families the support that they need. We want to make sure our parents are fully trained in all of the virtual spaces that we will be using this year so that they can access it themselves. We're being really creative and offering a lot of different times of the day. We're thinking about ways we can do some in-person training for parents who need more hands-on, but done in a safe way. Because what we know is that we've always had essential workers as our parents in our community. So some of our families' parents have never stopped working. And so we've learned a lot from them about what the challenges may be. The other piece that we focused a lot on in our reopening plan is providing teachers the support that they need. We're still learning a lot about teaching in the virtual space because it does look and feel very different. And so we're making sure that our teachers have the confidence to move in and out of the different platforms that we'll use. And as Beth alluded to DPSCD's plan, we're also going to have a full instructional day with live teaching happening every day. And it was also critically important to us that we had PE, art, and music in our specials classes because those are all part of the educational process. And so we wanted to make sure that our teachers and our parents had the stamina and understanding that they needed to support our students successfully. One of the things I also want to draw a bright line on in the legislation that the governor just signed, it was breaking news a moment ago, is that we're being expected to cover a full year's worth of curriculum in this upcoming school year, which requires that attention to the student schedule. And so we really want to stress that unlike March to June, we will have a full day of instruction. And so we're really relying on our parents to be keep that two-way communication open. I am encouraging all of our parents who are listening on this call that you are your child's best advocate, and we couldn't do our work without you. I'm also saying to all the teachers who may be on this call as well, we couldn't do this work without you. I want to thank the community as a whole in advance, because we will only get through this if we do it together. I will stop here for Q&A.
Thank you so much. And you're so right, only together. Christine, do we have any questions for our education segment before we go to the next voice?
We do. And just a reminder, we're putting a survey in the chat. If you fill it out, you will be entered into a $25 gift card raffle. So Beth, this is for you. How will DPSCD help students build relationships with teachers virtually?
Great question. So our content area teams have been working together with educators, our actual teachers, all summer. And one of the things that they're working to develop is a set of lessons for the first few weeks of school that really help teachers facilitate and build community among their students with themselves, and also getting to know them, their new students, as an educator. Additionally, those lessons will focus on some of the skills kids need to be able to, participate in a conversation, submit, and so we understand that in the first few weeks of school, actually building community, getting to know some of these skills that we haven't had to use before, and also attending to, how students are feeling with such a different opening, are going to be a priority as we start the school year. So we'll be supporting teachers with some recommended lessons and guidance, and that will be a focus in our professional learning with them as well.
Great, thank you. There was another question that said, that asked where parents can find information for DPSCD. Crystal, who is the Assistant Superintendent of Communications, just gave us a website, which is on the DPSCD website. It's www.detroit12.org/return to school. And I'm going to ask that someone, Molly, or someone that's on the Facebook chat, to please take that out of our chat and drop it in. And then this is for either, has there been a decision regarding standardized testing? Has there been a, yeah, go ahead.
Current status of what I know. I know there is a demand for districts to administer district level diagnostic assessments. And so, for example, in Detroit Public Schools Community District, we'll continue to administer our iReady diagnostic both to students in person and online. we are expecting the kindergarten readiness assessment, which was going to be introduced this year. There's likely a 1-year delay, and we will not be implementing that this year. We do not have clarification yet from the state on the other state mandated assessments. But as soon as we have, the districts have any clarification, we'll be sharing that forward with families. Regardless of the administration of that assessment, as was shared by my colleague Danielle from University Prep, we'll be delivering a full year's worth of instruction to prepare students for that assessment should it be administered in the spring.
Great, thank you. And then I just wanted to read this comment. Is it reasonable to think a child can stay in front of a computer for a full school day of learning? As adults, we struggle and are drained working from home. A child should not be held to the same expectations. And so because we've got to move on to Terrence, and it looks like Danielle just popped on, so I'll give you the last word. But if we'll send this question to you, and if you both would respond to that, so that then we can share it, that would be helpful. But Danielle, go ahead. You have the last word, and then Jametta, we can keep it moving. Go ahead, okay. Danielle.
Thank you. Very quickly, that is absolutely correct. And so I want to remember these two words, asynchronous and synchronous. It's become our second language. So during that full day, there are moments where there's synchronous work, that's the live teaching. And then there's asynchronous work that can happen during off the screen. And you want to look for a balance of both. So again, hold us accountable. It's very true. Having a student in front of the TV all day or in front of the screen all day is not ideal. And we want to adjust for that reality.
Danielle, thank you so much, as well as Crystal. Thank you for providing those perspectives from administrators. And the other essential voice to have in this discussion needs to be one of our teachers. And so we're very pleased to have join us, Terrence Martin. Terrence is with the Detroit Federation of Teachers. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Go ahead, you've got the floor. Or the internet.
Sure. Good afternoon. And once again, thank you for having me. For those who don't know, my name is Terrence Martin. I'm the president of the Detroit Federation of Teachers, and very happy to serve over 4,000 men and women who do more with less for Detroit children than anyone. As many of you know, we have been struggling with the idea of returning to school face-to-face and returning to school through virtual instruction. Since the mandatory closure back in March from the governor, we've been really thinking about how do we get our students and staff back safely. And so many of you know that the district has put out a plan to do so some months ago. And when that plan was released, that plan was developed really without the input of the classroom teacher and support staff and ancillary staff that are going to be charged with implementing such a plan. And so since then, we have been very vocal and adamant about the things that we believe need to be added and need to be lifted up within that plan. And we've done so. Things have been extremely slow up until the point of a couple of days ago. But since then, when you look at the numbers in and around the Detroit area and the state of Michigan, increasing with new COVID cases, when you consider other school districts around the country who have already gone back face-to-face, and the debacle that exists with trying to do this, and just the overall fear and anxiety from teachers and staff about going back into an environment that they believe is potentially unsafe, my members spoke loudly and clearly. And on last night, we took a historic vote, 90% or 91% vote to authorize a safety strike if need be. Obviously, this did not come as a very easy decision, but a decision that we thought was necessary to protect the health and safety of our students and to protect the health and safety of our staff. And many of you may want to know, well, what is a safety strike? Is this the same as what we would typically see when teachers withhold service from the district or from students? And this is not that. What we are essentially saying is that we are ready and willing to work virtually, but not in person until the needs and demands of our students and staff relative to health and safety are met. And that is including but not limited to proper ventilation in classrooms and in buildings, social distancing, measures that deal with when people or if people contract the virus, making sure that choice of whether to work virtually or whether to work in person are choices that are given to all staff, not just classroom teachers, just to name a few of the things. Proper PPE provided to all staff, proper PPE provided to all students, making sure that our online platform is at a level that is conducive for all students. And so these are the things that we are certainly fighting for. And we look forward to continuing to negotiate those things at the bargaining table with the school district. Over the last 3 days, we have really gotten the attention of our school board members, and a number of them have been a part of those conversations. There has been some movement on the district's part because of their involvement, but obviously we're still not there. And again, our goal at this point is to continue to go through professional development, as many of our members have. To continue to work towards resolution. We miss our children. We want to be with our children. We would love to be face-to-face 100% with our children, but we recognize right now that that's just not the case and it's not safe to do so. But we are ready and looking forward to servicing children virtually in a space that is healthy, in a space that is safe. And I certainly appreciate the community who has backed us and supported us through such a tough time. This is not an easy decision for anyone, from the school board, for the district, and for teachers and staff. But collectively, hopefully, we can develop something that is best and is healthy and safe for all.
Terrence, thank you very much. And as the president of DFT, I think that all of us in the coalition, we know that all voices have to be at the table to get the best outcomes for our children. And then all levels of voices have to be at that table. So we appreciate you. We appreciate the administrators and the teachers and others, health providers that are working around this issue of safety.
Thank you.
And so while we're talking about this balancing act that we're attempting to do, that is unprecedented, we also always want to end with a parent voice. And we're so pleased to have join us again from our Hope Starts Here citywide initiative, where children from pre-birth to 8 will thrive. We're happy to welcome Jahara Muhammad. Jahara, welcome.
Thank you, Donetta. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jahara Muhammad. I'm with Hope Starts Here Detroit, a community outreach coordinator, and we're focused on Imperative 2. And one of the things that I've heard a lot today are educators and even parents speaking about advocacy. And one of my personal favorite quotes, if you're gonna get into trouble, make some noise, and get into good, necessary trouble, right? So we've been talking about, of course, going back to school and the census. And I talked to a young lady who she just graduated last year, and she was in one of the Grow Detroit Young Talent programs. And they asked if they had filled out the census. And she said, well, my mom filled it out, but I didn't fill it out. And her received response from the educator was, well, you must not care about your community because you didn't fill out the census, and what kind of a person are you? You don't care about the schools, you don't care about grants, etc. And her response was, well, from the ads they play, only one person in a household should fill out the census. But what they told us in the class was, you know, multiple people need to fill it out because we're just trying to get numbers. So she asked me, she said, well, do they want correct data for what we need in our community, or do they just want numbers to make it look like they're giving us something, but so we don't get anything? And based on what she asked, I had to think about it. I said, well, think about your school days when you were in social studies and whatnot. What did they tell you the census was? And she said, well, they said that was data collected so that if you filled it out, each community gets the necessary information and the necessary resources so that we can have programs in the schools, so that we can get into good colleges, or even get the job like I have now, so that I don't have to go to a college and work for a company. I can do my own thing. I said, exactly. So if you filled it out the way that you were taught in school, that's what's supposed to happen. And I think as a parent myself, when it comes to educators and when we're educating our children, we want to make sure that we're letting them know properly what we want them to do to better themselves. So not talk at children and parents, but make sure we're talking to them and empowering them with resources. Because like someone said, the people that are making the decisions are parents themselves, and everyone is at an emotional high. And we just need to make sure that when we're talking to parents and children, that we understand from parent to parent, everyone wants to make the best decision. And we're not incompetent. We just need to know what resources are needed for us to make the best decisions for our families. So thank you for hearing my voice. And again, I'm with Hope Starts Here. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jahara. And you're right, people are not incompetent. We need information, and knowledge is power, and we can stay connected with each other. So Christine, we're at that point that we need to wrap up our program, and we want to thank all of you that have joined us in this day, focusing in all voices to how we can have a safe return to learning, whether in school or at home. Christine.
Thanks, Jametta. Just a reminder, if your question wasn't answered, we'll get the answers and post them next week on onedetroitpbs.org and on the DPTV Facebook page. If you'd like regular updates from us, please fill the form out that's in the chat, or just put your email or phone number in the chat, or you can text us at 313-288-2082. Again, the number is 313-288-2082. Just a reminder, these programs are going to be shorter, and that's to better accommodate families, but still get the best information we can to you. Like usual, we have a few asks before you go. The first is please, please, please connect with your school that you plan on sending your child to this year. Give them a call. If your school has a choice between in-person instruction or virtual instruction, please let the school know what works best for your family at this time. It's so important this year that we do that because there's a lot of planning, as you all heard, that has to go into this year for the safety of our children, of our teachers, of our support staff. So please connect with your school. There are 75 days until the election. Please register to vote as soon as you can. You can register in person up until the November election at your local clerk's office and online. Also, we talked a lot about the census today. Couple things to remember. The deadline is September 30th, so carpe diem. And the information is confidential for the next 72 years. There is not a question about citizenship, and we all need to be counted. We stand to lose a lot if we're not counted, both personally and collectively as a community. Lastly, DPN, Detroit Parent Network, is hiring. I'm not sure if we have the links, but if we do have the links to the openings, the job openings, they're going to be in the chat. If they're not in the chat, please go to Detroit Parent Network's website, give them a call if you're interested in working for a really wonderful organization. And like always, before you go, we want to hear from you about what you want to hear about. So if you have topics or experts that you'd like to hear from, please share them in the chat right now, or text us at 313-288-2082. We're posting the survey in the chat one last time. fill it out and you'll be entered into a to win a $25 Visa gift card. And like always, I'd love for everyone to please turn on their cameras, because this town hall is truly a group effort. There's a group of us that plan it. We work really tirelessly all week long to do so. And then sometimes we have, things like what happened today, and everybody just works really hard. So I just want to acknowledge all of our partners, and we want to remind you to stay healthy, stay powerful, and stay strong. Cindy, will you please say that in Spanish?
Manténganse saludables, manténganse poderosos, y manténganse fuertes.
Thank you. Everybody have an awesome rest of the week.
Take care. Be blessed.